This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Podcast, Hoots on the Ground with no bullshito. And we have got the OG Lean Builder, Mr. Buddy Brumley. Welcome to the Lean Builder Podcast, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are. Just take the stage and introduce yourself.
Glad to be here with you, Adam. Buddy Brumley, Senior Superintendent, Skiles Group. Been with Skiles now for almost 13 years. I had worked for them 25 years ago, and I was able to come back 13 years ago. I've been fortunate to get in on this lean ride with Keon Zandy, and it's changed how I do business, how I run a job.
Interesting. I love it. And I guess to that note, can you take us a little bit deeper? So I think I've heard of that guy named Keon before, but I want to know more about Buddy and I guess where you come from, who you are, what gets you motivated, excited. Take us inside the hood a little bit.
I grew up in construction. My stepdad was a superintendent, and I wanted to run as far from construction as I could when I was graduated. I paid a firm to get me a job day after graduation to keep from going in construction.
Wait a minute, you paid somebody to hire you? That's awesome.
So anyway, so I worked in insurance for 10 years, moved up the ladder, had 3 weeks vacation. I transferred to 2 or 3 different places, 5 days a week, but it was wound up writing contractors equipment, builder's risk, and motor truck cargo. So I was still doing things, and the company paid for school. And for some crazy reason, besides the regular classes, I took blueprint reading and some other stuff. So somehow or another in the back of my brain, I was getting back in construction. So 10 years later in Ohio, had a daughter, and we're too far from home. So my dad had his own company at that time, and we came home and got back in construction. And I don't know, I think getting back in, when I did, I was a little more mature and things prioritized a little better. And so that's basically where it started now. I've always been in the right place at the right time, it seems like, for some reason, been pretty lucky. And so when I moved ahead of a lot of people. When I went to work with my dad, I hacked a few people off, but he started me in basically as an assistant superintendent, which jumped me ahead of a few people. And a lot's changed since then. Safety wise, safety was a lot less important back then. Also, schedules and things like that were not quite as aggressive as they are now. The job still got done, but it wasn't like now. And when this job started accelerating, it became harder to do, stressful. It's stressful now, but it was more stressful then because we didn't have really the right kind of tools. We'd have owners meetings and subcontractor meetings, and then everybody would leave schedules on the desk, all that same story everybody talks about. Nobody was bought into it, and it was a dogfight to drag everybody to the finish line. Every trade, you had to push them out the door to get them finished. Now, I got pretty good at that. I work everybody toward the door, whether they're ready to go or not. They sometimes get mad at me for moving their stuff, but I'll move it toward the door. You got 3 guys on the job and you got 27 ladders. And
At
so
26 now, I just heard one.
this kept a bit smaller job, but it's the seventh job we've done for this particular client. And so I'm sitting right in the middle of the action. I got a little makeshift office made, set up here, and but people don't have to hunt me down.
And I will, yeah, no, I love that. I'll tell you, and for what it's worth, you offered to go to a more quiet space, but I think that's the whole point of this podcast is we want to be boots on the ground with you, and exactly what you were just saying, like you're right there in the middle of the action where if something pops up, hey, where's Buddy? Oh, boom, he's right there in the place where we're making value. And I think that's huge. No worries on the sound. I'm super excited to try and figure out what activities you're doing in the background.
Yeah, right now we're fixing to start putting grid in. I mean, we're moving on pretty quick. We got about 2 months left in the project, so we're putting aluminum frames in. They're cutting frames and putting them in, and we're getting ready to get the millwork guy out here. He's already took his shop or his field dimensions, and the glass guy. It's moving pretty fast. This particular job has it's got a big client that we're working inside a area near the Blue Star is Jerry Jones's company, and they're real demanding on finishes. So this is a little different deal, but we're going to pick up another client out of this thing too when we show them. So it's good.
Absolutely. And I guess you started to go down a road that really intrigues me. You started to talk about how you used to push people out the door and that sort of thing. Can you take us through kind of the evolution of construction as you've seen it just throughout your career, and what it's looked like, what it looks like, and what it will look like?
Yeah. One thing my dad instilled in me was keeping a job site clean and organized. And at the end of the day, nobody leaves unless everything's back in. We assign them a little home to put their stuff, and nobody leaves until everything's back in their spot. If they want to make sure it's on the floor the next day. And once you get that established, it works pretty good. But in the old days, it was more of a free for all. The duct guy started at one end, the sheetrocker started at the other end, and it was a train wreck in the middle. And then you had to take drywall down to let the duct guy get through. It was chaotic. It was shooting from the hip, and everybody did their own thing. They didn't care about anybody else. When we started doing the lean, that's when we started working in zones and directions, and things really started working a lot smoother, a lot less rework. But in the old days, things would show up on the job whether you wanted it or not. You'd have to try to find a place for it. It was unsafe to work. The sheetrocker would have all 2,000 sheets of sheetrock delivered all at one time. He didn't use it up for 2 months, and everybody had to work unsafe around stuff like that. Now it's just in time deliveries.
When you talk about doing lean in construction, what does that mean to you as a lean builder?
To me, it's not all me anymore. It's spread out amongst all the guys, and everybody's communicating with each other. They don't have to come find me to address a problem. They need to tell me what the problem was so that I know. And if they decide to go a different direction than what we talked about in the huddle, they need to let me know what the issue was. But getting them to talk to each other was the big thing that really seemed to make it all work. That and the visual boards, getting to write their own stuff down on the constraint board. It's like a light bulb goes off in there when you say, don't tell me, go and write it on the board. It's like, what? And so it's cool to see that when they realize they got a little power. Between that and just right now, we're at a difficult time too, because we had the flows set up and we had deliveries all set up. And now with the supply chain issues, we've got to almost take deliveries when we don't really want to, just to make sure we have them. When you're used to doing lean and doing a certain path, and now you're really having to adjust it, because of current conditions, you got to really get creative with that, because I've been there where I sent things back and then it got lost. And then you had to wait for it to get ordered again. It was kind of like, I'm learning lessons and I'm 100 years old and I'm still learning lessons, you know? So
You can't be that old.
I'm getting close, but it keeps it interesting. And you get people working together a lot more. When we did the constraint board, when we first started that, I figured 80% of it would be architectural issues. I just assumed that it seemed like we were always waiting on, but it turns out it's not. It's manpower, materials not being here. There's a lot, it very rarely is design issues, which I really found hard to believe.
Yeah, I think you're getting to a key part of it. It's that learning what is the trend here? What is prohibiting us from going to work? And if it's me or if it's our trade partners or if it's a designer, like whatever it is, whatever the process is that's halting us from being successful, let's just dive into it and deal with it right away. I think you're describing exactly what a lean builder is to me. They march right into an issue and try and understand the facts before they make solutions, before they solutionize things.
Well, and it's a continuous improvement. So now it's, okay, we've been doing this long enough. Let's get the matrix on that. Let's figure out what the trend is so that we can focus on it more, get out in front of it a little sooner, and try to keep that from being what slows us down.
Focusing on the process, because each job is custom and different, but but there's a certain process in which the way you work that you solve problems, whether that's the way you ask questions or the way you connect people. Like, you have a process as a human being on how you're making work happen. Trying to identify that and spread that that's so crucial. I completely hear what you're saying. I keep seeing you look kind of over there in that direction. Can you take us maybe through your space that you've created? Are you looking at boards?
Yeah, I can spin us around. We just did our wipe down this morning, and I'm bringing the trades back in a little later because we had this to finish filling it out for this week. But let me get out of the way. I've got my lean board, my constraint board, PPCs, our deliveries, and on our deliveries, I try to make them tell me exactly what's coming, so that when they try to deliver 800 sheets of sheetrock, I cut them back to what they're going to be using. And then I had 4 visuals up in the little bigger space I had. I got squeezed down to this room while I was taping bed guys, sanding and stuff like that. When you're in an office setup in the action, you've got to adapt. That's another one of those things we got to adapt to. And so it's still better than being out in the trailer across the street and down the road. Like we were talking about earlier, that I'd rather be in the action where they can come find me than out in the trailer, because you get hung up out there, it might be the end of the day before you get back in here. So I'd rather be a little inconvenienced and be here in the middle of the action so I can handle the things as they come up. So I make it work.
Absolutely. And I can't overemphasize that. I love the noise in the background. It's a construction site, y'all. That's his office. Really impressed with you hanging up the green cord. That's awesome. That's how it should be. I like that. I can even hear maybe they're plumbing up door frames or something in the background. I hear a little laser noise going on. I love it, man. So I'm getting closer to figuring out what's going on in your job. Plus, the finish of the drywall gives it away. Maybe you're getting ready to get some finishes going and start prettying that place up. Again, gets me excited just hearing the job site sounds. That's where it's at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm glad I had my cord hanging up. pretty observant at him.
That would have been embarrassing, huh? One of
Yeah,
Keon's projects. And,
oh
you know,
man.
I'll tell you, and so here's something that I'm going to hit you with that maybe you're aware, maybe you're not. I went through the Lean Builder workshop with Keon and Joe not long ago. It was in Austin for Texco there, which is the AGC ABC combo. I'll tell you what, I think every other picture had Mr. Buddy Brumley leading a daily huddle. You're like a superstar in that arena.
If you've done it so many different ways and it wore you out, and then you found something that people coming into it now don't know what it took to get and don't know that how better this is. I try to explain it to them, but Keon and management thought that a couple of older guys would be the ones that would resist it the most, and we were the ones that jumped on it the fastest. There's got to be something to that for us to want to embrace it. We know what it was like before, and this way of doing things really helps a lot. Finishing is the hardest part of any job. It's all the little loose ends and things like that. So when you get your visual and you can circle things, what I like to do is mark progress, and then at some point you quit marking progress and you show on the board what's left to do, so that you start squeezing it down and moving people toward the door.
I love how you just said that. You go from tracking progress and what is done to tracking what is remaining to be done, that rolling completion list. That's such an interesting point. When do you flip that switch? When do you know intuitively it's time to start tracking what's not being done?
Well, like the hardest one to track is the electrical, because I can look at it and they've got 2,000 foot of conduit up and I think they're almost done, and it's hard to track that. But ductwork, when you get about 2/3 of the way done with the ductwork, I don't need to mark what's done now. I just need to mark what's not done, and then it's easy to walk over there and just take your finger and clean it off when they get another section of duct up. Same thing with walls when they're framing. Now what we're doing is we're tracking, because we want to start the grid right behind the sanding and priming the walls. Now we're tracking rooms that are sanded and primed so that we can pull the trigger on getting the grid guy started as soon as we get enough rooms ahead of it. So we're just tracking like that. But you can do the same thing with floors. If you get over 60 or 70%, you need to flip it the other way and start marking what's not done, because it's hard to walk out there if you're not tracking it. Just one more thing, easy to do. And also you can really highlight areas that have problems. Need to hold up on closing that one wall up because we're waiting on the answer to an RFI or whatever. And it's bad when you just talk about things, but when you mark it down and somebody goes and closes up a wall that wasn't supposed to get closed up, and now you're taking it down for free. You're not charging me to take it down because we told you we had an issue. So everybody kind of paying attention to what they're doing.
Yeah, I love the philosophy there. You mentioned the more experienced folks had picked it up a little bit faster, and I want to unpack that a little bit. You mentioned getting things out of your head. I've heard a story about you that involved an oh crap card or something along those lines. What is that all about? So tell us that story, will you?
Okay, so I used to have, every time somebody would come up with an issue, that I would grab a scrap piece of paper, tear off a cardboard lid, whatever I could find, and write down the note and put it in my pocket. And then when I got home every night, I'd be pulling these scrap pieces of paper and crap out of my pocket. And so my wife called it my crap and crap, because it just kept getting bigger. And it would be like if somebody said, remember I told you last week I had this issue, and I'd say, oh crap, and I'd pull out this big wad of paper and I'd find it. So it was back on me. And right now I got, just since you asked, I got one piece of little note card in my pocket. And instead of the big wad that I used to carry in there. So it makes a difference. When you're marking things on the wall, when you're talking to people, I don't have to try to remember stuff. My memory, my processor is not, it's full, and it doesn't, I don't remember things as well as I used to, I think. And so doing this new way, and my wife likes it a lot better too, you know.
I love it. The oh crap cards. Tell us more about the transition, because oftentimes it is the more experienced folks who are stuck in their ways, for lack of a better term, or they've had success in the past of doing things a certain way. What things did you overcome? What was the biggest challenge in trying to pick some of this lean building stuff up?
You hear it a lot from older guys that they don't understand the change. They'll say, I've done it this way for 25 years. I've brought my jobs in on time every time. My way worked. My way worked the other way 70, 80% of the time, but it was a struggle every day. And the percentage of my way now is a lot better than it used to be, and a lot less stressful. And so I don't get the resistance because I've done it so many different ways and see this. So we try to bring our new people on and let them go to different job sites so they can see it in action. Because unless you see it work, it's like some of the young guys, you got 6 weeks left in the job, you got a lot of work left, you're never going to make it. That's the mentality. You're never going to make it. And the mentality that I know is we're going to make it. It's not an option to not make it. So how are we going to get there? We need to do another pull plan. Whatever we got to do, you know, let's regroup for whatever reason, do another pull plan and make this thing work. Can we start something sooner? Everybody wants the job all to themselves. I need 6 weeks and I want everybody out of the way. No, you got 1 week and then people are going to be trailing right behind you. So how do we do that? And it's a culture. Our company is trying, there's a lot of people that talk about doing it. They may do it on 1 or 2 jobs. We do it on the smallest jobs, learn it on the small jobs. And then once you see it work, then it makes sense. And so there's a lot of different ways, but if you're selling your company as being lean and you only got 40% of your jobs doing it, you're an imposter. You're just saying you're doing something when you're not really doing it, in my opinion.
I agree 100% for the record. And for 2, I'll tell you, there's a lot of companies out there that just said, holy cow, I think Buddy's talking about me. I think there's a lot, even large companies that are claiming, promoting, even selling, marketing themselves as lean construction companies, yet maybe 10, 20% of their jobs are actually operating in a lean fashion, which means more than just the last planner system. There's more to it than just that.
I think the owners, the management team has to buy into it. If they don't see the value in it and do it company-wide, I don't know why they only do it a certain percentage of jobs. Because here, when I get a trade partner that came from one of the other guys' jobs, when we first started this, they wouldn't know how to do this. But now, since we're all doing it, I don't have that anymore. When the trade partner comes over here, they know how to fill out the board. They know what we're looking for. Their company knows what we're looking for. We write it into their contracts. There's no excuse.
It's become a standard. Yeah.
Right. Makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
I get it, because we did that before, where when we first started, only a handful of jobs were doing it. And every time a new trade partner would come on the job, you'd be starting over and over again. And that's when we said, hey, we got to all do it. because I worked for a company years ago that didn't treat their trade partner, and so that might be from either not paying the change order wise or just beating them to death on price or whatever. So every job, I would have a new plumber. Every job, I'd have a new sheetrocker. And that was so frustrating because you're always starting behind. You're having to teach somebody how to do something, what the culture of the company is. And the only thing I have out here in the field for me is my word. And if I ask somebody to do something, I need my company to back me up. Because if they don't, the next time I ask somebody to do something, they're not going to do it. And then it's going to take 3 days longer to do something than it would if everybody was treating everybody. That part's important to me too. Otherwise, I can't get done.
Tell me this, buddy. What excites you? What gets you going?
That's a good question. What I like about what I do is we're not building franchises. Everything we do is different. I like to be able, I don't know, last year that for the first time, I hadn't done a job that had post tension, and neither had the guy, and he was older than me. We had 100 years worth of construction experience between us, and we'd never seen it. And boy, you talk about, we were doing research, we were doing whatever we could do to try to figure it out. And it wasn't like trying to run from it. It was trying to figure it out because it's pretty cool, just so that kind of stuff. I don't pretend to know everything. What I like is when something like that comes up, phone. I like to call another old superintendent or somebody I think might have seen it and say, hey, what do you think? You seen this before? How'd you handle it? I'm not too proud to pick up that phone and call. Worst thing you can do is act something when you really don't. If you get outed real fast, sooner or later you get outed, and it's not pretty when that happens.
Not all. You can learn a lot of things on YouTube, but you cannot learn it all on YouTube. You got to get out there and actually do it, experience it, put your hands on it, feel it, touch it, embrace it. I have a two-part question here, right? Do you talk about the experienced folks and the actual adoption of change very easy, which again, I think is atypical. I love it. But I want to understand more about typical resistance that you find with folks who just don't want to pick up lean or lean construction tools or concepts. And then how do you overcome that? Where's the best place to start?
Some of what we've done too is we had a guy that in the past that was an older guy that he was getting close to retirement age, and he knew he wasn't going to be around much longer. So it wasn't something that he was interested in doing. But we had younger people on site, that superintendents or field engineers or whatever. And so we could say, let this guy, let's delegate this to him and let him do it because he's going to need it as he grows with the company. So let's let him do it, get the experience. You can be there monitoring what's going on. So if somebody asks a question, there's a RFI constraint, whatever, you can at least help with the management of it. And that's worked out pretty well too. So sometimes it's like trying to figure out a way to delegate it in another direction. And then I've got a Spanish speaking kind of foreman type that I'll bring in with me when I need to help make people feel comfortable in the process when we're doing our huddles. But the huddle, everybody talks about it, but the huddle's probably the most important thing. If you don't do anything else, at least do a huddle, because those people need to talk to each other. They need to let you know what they're doing and start from there. So that's kind of what we do. Start slow, build up, add the boards, add the constraint board, add the visual floor plans.
That sounds like a book that I read not too long ago.
Probably so. Probably more coming out. Continuous improvement. We keep going back to that.
Which I hear you when you say, when I asked you the question of what gets you the most excited, what I really heard you say was learning and always like getting into something different, something new, making yourself better, just improving overall.
Yeah. It's just new technology, new lights, just new ways of doing things. Things are getting smaller, but they're still complicated. The light fixtures are LED now, but there's drivers and there's all kind of stuff that you got to put in that you didn't have to when you had other kind of lights. And so
I hear you, but in just the way that you speak and the way that you talk, the words that you use, I hear a growth mindset in you all day long. But there are superintendents out there that have fixed mindsets that are like, buddy, I'm just not doing that lean crap. And so what do you say to those folks who are just not gonna have it?
yeah, you may cut this part out. If that's your company culture, we had to think, butts in the right seats. And if you've got people that don't want to do what the company's growth pattern is, maybe they need to be working for somebody else. That's tough talk. We got trade partners that give us the discount, basically.
They call it the Buddy Brumley discount, from what I understand.
I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, when they know that we're going to be doing things a certain way, we get a little different price maybe than somebody that's not doing it. And so if you got a few people that buck that system, then it's going against everything you're working towards. So the older guys, you got to find people that are open-minded to change. Even me, we got young guys. This is so cool for me to watch. We've got young guys that are coming in that got this technology stuff down, and their minds are always spinning for doing things a different way. What else can we do? Trying to get paperless. I'm one of the old guys fighting to try to keep my plans and specs so that I can mark on them. It's going just like Steve Turner. It's going paper. And so hopefully I can adapt to that. But there's new technology coming out, and it's exciting for me just to sit back and listen and hear about this stuff. I'm not sure if I'll be able to pick up on all of it or not, but that's what we got some of these young guys for. They can do all that research, they can find it out, figure it out, and try it out, because it keeps changing, but it's pretty neat to see. So that's a long way around your question.
No, I think you're spot on. And the one consistency is there's always going to be change in every single thing that we do. I love where your head's at. And sometimes that might be a really tough conversation. I just did a podcast on accountability not long ago, and really that's it. You take it through, you look at yourself internal as a leader and understand, hey, is it me? At least for the first 4/5 of it. And then the last fifth, it's okay. Now we're talking, having crucial conversations, trying another role. And if that still doesn't work, then maybe we're separating out of respect for the person and the organization, because you just don't fit the culture and you'll stick out like a sore thumb. So I think you nailed the response there. I very much value that. And the other thing I'll say is that I don't believe that a lot of the lean stuff in this lean construction world is really different than what a lot of old school builders have done. Now, if you're a great builder in the past, chances are you've already done some lean things. And so I'm waiting for somebody to come out there and really just help us align the two worlds of, hey, if you want to call it a 3-week look ahead versus I want to call it a make work ready plan, those two things can be the same. Why does naming it something really make it any different than what you've been doing for your entire career?
We had a guy, his name was John Dowling, and he was one of the kind of like one of the founding guys, the superintendents. He'd been here for 30 plus years, and he worked 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, 43, maybe 42 or 3, but he had his basic plan, 2-week plan on a tablet, and it was about 2 pages, and he was so organized and he knew everything. So if he'd go on vacation, you go over to his job, cover his job for him. He had it all mapped out and had everybody lined up similar to what we're doing here. It was just done a different way.
Yeah, so why do we have to call it something different? He had his own version of the last planner system, and it worked. Was it effective?
But he bought into the boards too, because he got to take it off of his tablet basically and put it on the wall. And how many times you get out in the field and your wind's blowing, or drop it, or you try to stuff it in your pants while you're climbing a ladder, or there's just a lot of stuff you got to keep up with when you're tracking it like that.
Nicholas Modig taught me this. In Japan, the Japanese say that information that is living is visual and on the wall. Information that wants to go and die or be documented goes into the computer. And it basically is saying when people can see information, they're constantly updating it, versus if I have to go click through a bunch of folders and files in order to find that information's dead. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's true. I get emails. I get 100 emails a day. But once people start, on our system anyway, once people start responding to them, they get a little harder to find. When you're trying to find it, you got to keep a couple of keywords in there, try to find it. If it does disappear on you, I try to keep things in my in basket so that I can try to remember. You're scrolling up and down trying to find something that somebody sent you last week, and it gets lost, just like that wad of paper in my pocket, you know.
Oh crap.
As far as the lean journey and things like that, it just makes it a little easier to get up every day, just knowing that things are going to be smoother. When the old way, it seemed like 4 or 5 days out of the week were fire drills. Now, yeah, you still got problems. Yeah, you still got issues, but it doesn't seem to be every minute of every day that you're putting the fire out, because you're trying to get out in front of it. And when you do, when somebody comes to you and you say, hey, I need this, or wait a minute, don't tell me today that you need something right now and expect it to get done. Plan further ahead. I'll get you worked in, but I'm not dropping what we're doing to go take care of this issue. You had a chance to tell us this morning or yesterday morning or something. Don't come to me now at 10 o'clock and need something before noon. And then try to stay on that, just because if you keep doing that, putting those little fires out like that, they'll go back to the old way of doing things and not tell you till they need it. And we're trying to get them to look a little further ahead. And the only way you can do that is not give in every time somebody does that.
Stand your ground. I hear you talking a little bit about that Eisenhower matrix and trying to get a little bit further of a forecast and not fight fires, but live in this quadrant 2 of being a lean builder, you know, staying away from quadrant 3 where you can delegate things, or even 4, which is waste. Stay in the planning mindset, stay ahead of things, try to get out there in front of the fires, be proactive, not reactive, as they say. What advice would you give to some folks who are just now coming into the industry, that are just discovering kind of what the industry is all about? What's 1 or 2 things that you would tell them in order to drive success in their careers?
I get to mentor to a lot of younger guys, and what I try to explain to them is everybody does it different. I got a system here that I think is I do things for a reason. Even on my boards, I have a system to them that's a little different. that makes sense to me that might not make sense to somebody else. But what I tell them, if it's even on our weekly reports or something like that, is look at how everybody's doing it. Figure out a way to set yourself apart and ahead. If you look at how people do things, you can say, oh, that's pretty good, but I would do this or I would do that. And I could clean this up and make this. And you're going to move up the ladder faster if you're sitting there constantly trying to figure out a way to do something better than if you just try to make it through the day. There's a book, it doesn't, you can look at that a couple different ways. If somebody told you to read a book that was called Earn It, you might get your feelings hurt that somebody gave you that. Maybe they're trying to tell you that don't ask for a big raise or something until you figure this out, but that's not really what the book was about. Setting yourself apart, how to set yourself apart to make yourself more valuable to the company. And if you can ever figure that part out, then your mind's clicking all the time. You're trying to figure out, what can I do better? How can I streamline this a little bit more? What can I do to be noticed? And that's what it takes sometimes. If you're ever going to get ahead, is you got to get noticed. And a lot of times when people say, hey, you need 5 years experience. How do you get 5 years experience if nobody ever gives you a chance? And so when you do get that chance, somebody's taking a risk. They're a gamble on you. You can't let them down. So how can you make it worth their while? But what they saw something in you. Now you got to prove it. Don't just keep doing the same thing every day.
That's amazing advice. Yeah, do a little self-reflection and try and understand, what do they see in you, and then become a melting pot of everything that you see in them as leaders. Take the bits and pieces, the components that you enjoy and appreciate and make you feel valued, and the things that work or add value, and make it your own. Man, well said. Very well said. And to just recognize that everybody has a system, and your system may or may not work for the next person, and on down the line, I think is amazing. Great insight there. Thank you, Mr. Buddy. And I love when you look to your left, because there's a Lean Builder logo right there on your hard hat, huh? There you go. I like it. Oh, yeah.
We got new hard hats with our new logo. We've got the constant reminder. Every now and then you'll have somebody, what is that? What is that?
Let me tell you about that right there. Come on.
Dude, you asked the wrong question. We're going to be here for a few minutes. But another thing, just real quick, these boards tell a story. And if somebody comes in, and we encourage our owners or anybody else, come in, look at them, and they tell a story. If you come in here, if it's done, they can look at your boards and figure out what's going on or what's coming up. To me, there's probably less questions that need to be asked when you got it like right here, or if you have a meeting in here or whatever, it's right there. And so you got your milestones up there. It's telling the history of what's coming up and how we're getting there. Even the scoreboard over there has a history of, what do you mean 15 days? You got your weather days on there. I don't have weather days in here, but it's there. Don't you remember? There it is, right there, plain as day. And oh yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see those little light bulb moments, and also see them come in here and just stand there and look at it. We get fewer questions just because they can come look at that anytime they want to. So that's another thing that I like about it.
I think that's such a valuable point that many people miss. And I just want to echo that again. Those boards tell a story. They tell the story of your project. And a lot of times as folks are coming into your office, maybe you're on a phone, maybe you're finishing up a call or a meeting or an email, and they always just find themselves busy looking around at the walls. Why not have information that tells the story of the project right there for them to continue to look at, to develop? It's human intuition when we see something, especially if it's up and posted on a board, and it's not correct, that we want to go in and we want to make those corrections and we want to improve it when we see it. And so I love what you're talking about. And in fact, so much that in Jason Schroeder's TACT book, we came up with a metric called the STA, the Skilled Trades Alliance. I think we called it the third grade meter or something along those lines. And the metric was, can you bring a third grade classroom into your field office, and will they understand what's going on the job site? What is supposed to be happening today on the job? A third grader? Or is it, have you made the visuals that simple so that an elementary student could come into your job site and tell you what's going on today? So fabulous point, Buddy. That is a beautifully said. And I think oftentimes, I don't know if it's forgotten or just misunderstood, or we don't think about it in the terms of, hey, the art on the wall is telling the scientific story or journey of the project.
Yeah, and it's historic. We take pictures of it every week and do basically, we call it our lean survey. And you got to take a picture. You got to say whether or not you had a huddle every day, and you got to take a picture of your boards. Did you make past 70%? And if not, you got to put that on there, and you got to send that picture in. Eventually, those matrix will make it out to a report. This year, we're coming up with that, and so there'll be accountability. We had the year of accountability a couple of years ago. I thought that was pretty good because you got 10 people that are pushing things hard, trying to do things right. You got one or two people that aren't. Kind of not really fair. So everybody needs to be accountable for what they're doing, and these reports and things like that will come out, and it'll help us for future jobs too. Whatever type of job you're doing, we do similar type jobs in a different hospital or a different job. We might be able to go back to those records, pull them up, and figure out what went wrong and what went right, and give somebody a heads up to what to look for.
It sounds like the work's getting closer and closer to you, Buddy. We need to free you up. I want you to take and have the last word, and just wherever you want to take it, whatever you want to tell the Lean Builder Nation, the stage is yours.
This system that I'm using right now is already out of date. We're going to TVs and things like that. All these boards will be, on a TV or a monitor or something coming up, but continues to improve it. When Keon developed this, we've been using it for 8 years. It wasn't meant to be like this for 10 or 15 years. It was meant to be continually improved on. And you got the Bosch Refine My Site. You got a lot of different things that are tweaking this just a little bit more all the time. It's going to be a good system. Hopefully I can adapt to it because I like what I do. It's even so simple as on the board, I try to group my trade partners by spec section. If you're doing concrete work, that guy's at the top, the electrician's at the bottom. Everybody knows where their space is. Doesn't make sense to some people why that's important to me. If you've got some kind of pattern that you do, and you can make things make sense, make it simple. Just look for it. That's what I do. Doesn't mean it's the right way to do it, but to me, I want to make it where somebody can come in here, look at it, follow the path and the logic, and relate it to something. And that's what I do. Doesn't mean that's the way to do it. Everybody does it.
That's what Lean Builders do. They make it simple for everybody to understand, clear as kind.
Should be 101. Somehow it should be 101. It's not really dumbing it down, but it's just making it a process that the common person can come in here, the owner, somebody else that doesn't deal with it every day like I do. I don't have to try to figure out that first. If you don't track it, it's just like following a schedule that flows like that. Everybody's got their activities in different spots on that schedule. And so I get my project management team to print me out schedules by trade partner, because that's what they're going to follow to fill out the boards. And if they're having to follow a regular Gantt chart or something, that he's got something here, he's got something down here, and he's got something down there, he's going to miss something trying to fill out the board. So again, it's just simplify how you do things. It's pretty simple. They just push a button and they can pull out the schedule by trade partner. And so that's how we do that.
Thank you for spending the time with us today, Buddy. Something tells me that you had deep inspiration, like you were part of the inspiration for writing the book. In fact, you might even be a character in there. Again, I've seen your face on all the workshops. Every time that I read the book, you come in mind. You are the OG lean builder, Hoots on the ground. I love what you're doing. Thank you for being an inspiration to me and so many others, and giving, like, showing the world that change is possible and change is happening, and just being so open and willing to adopt it. I think you are, again, just the epitome of the lean builder, the original lean builder, Buddy Brumley. Thank you.
All right, cool.